Welcome to Sweet Red Poppy. I'm Kimberly and we are live. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make a scrub hat. This is a free pattern that I just put out today, and I had lots and lots of questions where people wanted me to just walk you through it step by step. So we're gonna sew it through tonight. This is what it looks like. Looks like this. It's fitted in the front and it has a little more fullness in the back. So if you have a lot of hair, you can wrap up your hair and stick it in here. There's plenty of space even for a ton of hair, and then you tie it in the back. So it's pretty easy to make. A lot of hospitals have been requesting them because they've been running out of them at their hospitals, so we're going to be making them tonight. If you can see this live video, go ahead and comment below. Let me know, where are you guys tuning in from? Have you been making face masks? Have you had any requests for these scrub patterns? I'm interested to know what you guys have been hearing on your side. So we're gonna jump right in. I have printed off the pattern. Now this is a free download on sweetredpoppy.com. This is what it's going to look like. It prints out 5 pages of a pattern. And you're going to piece these together. What you do is lay it out in front of you. It has numbers in the middle of the page, so you know how to line them up. And then you're aligning the stars together. You can see there are some light stars, and you're just going to line up the black lines and the stars, tape it, and then cut out your pattern pieces. So let me just grab, I already cut out my pattern pieces, and this is what it's going to end up looking like. So this is going to be the back of the head, and then this is the front that you saw, and it ties around the back. So it looks a little bit funny right now, but when it's all put together, it works out perfectly. So let me set this aside. Let me know if we have any questions in the comments. I'm gonna open these up. So I have 2 pieces of fabric in front of me. You could use 1 piece. I like to make my cap pattern so it's reversible. So on this side it's blue, on this side it's pink. It allows you to wear it a little more often without it being the same exact color every time. And it's fully lined. So I'm laying my fabric out in front of me. I'm just using a quilting cotton for this. This is a Riley Blake. This is an art gallery fabric. You can use anything that you can find at your local craft store. So lay this out in front of you. I like to smooth it all out. And then I'm going to lay my pattern pieces on my fabric. You'll notice this pattern is marked place on fold right here. And it's really important that you place it on the fold, otherwise it's not going to work. So I want to place that on my fold of my pink fabric as well as my white fabric. And the reason that I layer these on top of each other is because you can cut them out at once, and it saves you a little bit of time, making this process go by a little bit faster. So I'm just gonna make sure my folds are perfect. That's looking good. Okay, heads up, we are doing a giveaway tonight. So we're doing a $50 giveaway to Joanne. We're live on both YouTube and Facebook. So go ahead, like, comment, and share this video. In your comment, just let me know that you shared the video so you can be entered into the giveaway. And you'll want to stay tuned for the entire video. We'll be live for about 30 minutes, and I'm going to tell you at the very end who the winner is. So go ahead and leave a comment, share this video with your friends. If you know someone who could use it, make sure you're sharing it with them. I have my pattern pieces laid out in front of me. I'm going to turn this around, and let me make sure everyone on our cameras can see. If there's anything that you can't see, let me know and I can adjust things. So I'm putting a pin on this side, and usually I will throw a pin over on this side as well. And I'm just going to use my rotary cutter to cut it out. You can use a pair of scissors if you don't have a rotary. This is a little bit faster, so this is my preference. In the comments, I want to know, have you guys been making masks? If so, how many masks have you sewn? Who are you sewing them for? Is it for yourself? Is it for a hospital? Go ahead and let me know. We do have a matching face mask pattern that goes with this as well. So this is what the pattern looks like. You can find that on Sweet Red Poppy as well. So I have cut this pattern piece out. I'm going to set it aside. And now, this is a little bit tricky, but I'm going to open up my fabric so that I just have 2 layers. So you can see, I'm getting rid of that second layer because I only need to cut out one of my cap piece. So make sure your fabric is all smoothed out. I like to go to the very edge. And then I'm going to place another pin in this pattern piece. I'm gonna pull this back just a little bit. Do we have any questions that I can answer?
We're looking good right now.
Looking good? Okay. If you have a question at any point during this video, go ahead and leave it in the comments so I can answer it for you. And if I don't see it, you can leave it again, or I will get back to you after the live's over. Okay, so both of our pattern pieces are cut out. It's pretty easy to cut those out. There's one last step before we start sewing. We need to mark a few different things. We need to transfer our markings. So we have a marking in the center of this pattern piece at the very top. And that's just going to show you where the very middle top of your pattern is, and that will come in handy in the following step. So we're going to mark that, set it aside, and I'm going to mark this one as well. We have another piece right here. I just pull back each piece of fabric and make a quick little marking. I'm using a washable fabric marker for this.
How do you get entered in the giveaway one more time?
Oh, to enter into the giveaway, you will want to like this video, leave a comment letting me know that you have shared the video as well. Now we do have a little dart at the very bottom of this. This is probably the trickiest part, but I have a quick little easy way to do it. What I like to do is I take my pattern piece and I fold the paper on the line of my dart, and then I just fold my fabric back. This is a lot easier than having to trace it with a tracing wheel, which is how you usually do darts. And I stick a pin in the very top of this, just so I know where my dart ends. And I use my marking pen from the top of that pin all the way to the bottom. And usually I can get both sides of my marking. I'm going to repeat that on the white piece of fabric as well. Fold it all back. If you're planning on making a bunch of these, I like to do it assembly line style. And what that means is I will cut everything out at once, then I will do all my markings at once, I'll move on to sewing at once, and that seems to make everything go by a little bit faster. So if you end up having maybe a hospital near you that's in need, try that method because you'll find it just goes so much faster. Okay, pull this next one back. We are almost done with this step. Now it's time to unpin your pattern piece. Just gonna set my pins aside. So double check before removing your patterns that you have transferred all of your markings. Okay, so I should have, oh, sorry.
Could this work for men too?
What?
This work for men.
Okay, great question. Can this work for men? It can definitely work for men. So it is fitted in the front and we have some fullness in the back. The fullness is there if you happen to have a lot of hair and you want to hide it under your mask or under your cap, but it can also work for men because it can be tied really nice and tight. So definitely can be used for anyone. I'm going to lay out all of my pattern pieces in front of me. You should have a total of 4 pieces. You should have 2 of your ties, and you should have 2 of the cap, the rounded piece as well. So total of 4 pieces. The next step is to pin our fabric pieces together. So I'm going to use this fold. Remember, I cut my fabric on the fold. And the nice thing about doing that is you know exactly where the middle of this piece is. So lay that out in front of you. Then take your cap piece. Remember, we marked at the very top. We have a marking right here showing us that this is the middle. And we're going to line up that fold with that marking, and we're going to pin. Now, if you're newer to sewing, use plenty of pins. Don't be afraid of using pins. They can really help to distribute all of your fabric and make sewing a little bit easier. If you're more advanced, you can just use a few pins. We have a marking down here as well, and that is going to line up with the end of this cap. So I'm going to line those up first on either side. Okay, if you're just tuning in, we are making surgical scrub hats tonight. This is a free pattern that's available on Sweet redpoppy.com. I also have a bunch of face mask patterns, so lots of different things. I had a lot of requests for this pattern from hospitals that were running out of their surgical caps, and so we are here making lots of them. I've been sewing them all day. Let me know in the comments if you've been sewing masks as well. Okay, so you just have to play around with this fabric a little bit since you're doing kind of a straight edge to a rounded edge. And then I'm going to repeat this on the white fabric as well. Everything that I'm doing to my pink fabric, which is my main fabric, I'm also going to do to my white fabric, which is my lining. So everything gets repeated. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Good.
We're good? Okay. Reminder that giveaway is still going on. If you want to enter, the way to do that is to share the video, like this video, and then just leave me a comment letting me know that you entered. That way I can choose someone at the very end of the video. Okay, if you're over on Facebook, give me some stars if you can see this video. Again, I'm lining up the edge of this with my marking. Need to find my marking though. It's over here. So this comes together. I feel like you could probably do this in 15 to 20 minutes if I weren't on a video. It actually all sews up pretty quickly.
Somebody asked, what about the dart?
What about the dart? We do need to sew the dart. So the dart is on the other side, so we're gonna sew that in just a second. You could sew it before you line everything up. That's how I recommend in my pattern. It goes a little bit faster if you do all of the sewing steps at the same time. And the reason that we have a dart, so the dart is actually right here and right here. And what that does is it allows that straight piece of fabric to fit to your head a little bit more, so it doesn't like poke up, which is nice because it gives you more of a fitted look. Okay, we're almost done pinning. This is probably the most time-consuming part, is just pinning everything together. So here's what it looks like when we're all pinned. We took that straight piece of fabric and we curved it all the way around our cap piece. Now I'm going to grab my sewing machine. And I'm just using an all-purpose thread and a regular needle. Let's see if we can turn this on. And I'm just going to be sewing with a 3/8 inch seam allowance all the way around this rounded cap. So I'm going to stop at the end so that will leave these tails unsewn. I like to do it so I like to make sure that my cap pattern is facing downwards and that the fullness of the fabric is facing upwards towards me. That makes it a little bit easier to manage your fabric. So line it up with the edge of the presser foot. That's a 3/8 inch seam allowance. If you want to use a smaller seam allowance, you can. The reason I usually recommend 3/8 seam allowance is that it's a little bit easier for a beginner because it gives you a little more room to go back and forth. So I'm just going to distribute this fabric. You see there's a lot of fullness right here, and I just kind of move it around as I'm sewing so that I don't end up with any little tucks in my fabric. And take your pins out as you sew. Sometimes I forget. Back stitch when you come to the end of your seam. Now I'm going to repeat that on the pink fabric as well. I'm going to go back and do my see my darts in just a minute. Okay, back stitching at the beginning just to lock your seam in.
How much fabric is needed for one cap?
How much fabric? I think I used, let's see. About, this is backwards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Maybe about 15 inches. So, I don't know, maybe I would probably go with like a half of a yard of fabric. You'd be able to get a couple of the caps out of that and maybe one of the ties. If you're just tuning in, we are sewing up scrub caps tonight. I'm having a hard time getting those words out. I had a lot of requests from hospitals saying that they were running low, so I made a pattern and we can sew them up for our hospitals, for our nurses. It's pretty easy to make and it's a free pattern download on sweetredpoppy.com. Okay, I'm gonna lift this up and now I'm going to do my darts. So remember, we marked these funny looking little triangles. What you want to do is fold your fabric in half, and then I like to take a pin and I just stick it through either side, making sure that my lines are marking up. And then when you're sewing a dart, you want to sew from the largest point to, well, from the largest side to the point. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And there's 4 of them that I need to sew total. Okay, in the comments, go ahead and let me know, have you sewn up this scrub cap pattern yet? Are you planning on making it? Maybe you've been busy sewing up masks. I know I've been sewing lots of masks. So this was kind of a nice change of pace to have a break from masks and just do this scrub cap. Okay, I'm gonna sew, whoop, and I lost my thread. I'm gonna rethread. Do I have any questions while I'm rethreading that I can answer?
Will you have an SVG file?
Will I have an SVG file? I don't think that it would fit very well on a Cricut mat because we're cutting on the fold. That makes it a little bit hard.
Josh Coffin says, "Is my wife the cutest, kindest, most talented person ever?"
So sweet. Uh-oh. Got all sorts of wrapped up here. Sorry, guys. If you're not already a member, we actually have a group where we're sewing face masks, where you can ask questions, share about what you're making, or if you have a need for face masks. So it's on Facebook and it's called COVID-19 Face Masks with Sweet Red Poppy. So if you want to head over and join that, if you have any questions, you can ask them in there. It's a really fun group and everyone is so helpful. Okay, those 2 are done. Now I'm gonna do these ones. I'm curious to know, what do you guys like to do while you are sewing? Are you like a Netflix? Do you turn on some shows while you're sewing? Do you just sew in peace and quiet? I love having a show while I sew. Okay, I'm gonna sew this one again. So this is our last dart. Remember, start from the largest side and sew to the point, back stitch. Okay, now we're ready to pin everything together. I'm gonna do a quick press. I always recommend that you press in between steps. It's just going to make everything look a little bit nicer in your finished product. So I have my iron ready, fill it up with steam. That helps the pressing process so much to have lots of steam. And what I want to do is I'm going to be pressing my darts in opposite directions. So on my lining fabric, I want to press them in. On my main fabric, I can press them out or vice versa. It's just so that you don't have so much bulk when you go to put everything together.
Where did you get your fabric?
This fabric, I believe this one is from Riley Blake, and the other one is an art gallery print, so you could find either of them on Etsy.
Will these work with jersey or knit fabric?
Oh, that's a good question. It might get a little bit hot with a knit fabric. That would be my first concern. Would it work? Yes, it would. I'm not sure if that's what a hospital wants, if they want jersey. I think cotton is usually preferred. But you can definitely call your hospital and find out. That's another thing. If you're wanting to sew things, make sure you're contacting your local hospital to find out what their needs are. It's a little bit different every hospital to each different hospital. Some people have one need, someone else has another need. Make sure that you're checking in before you're making a ton of things. Okay, this is the next step. Turn this one right side out. I'm going to be placing it inside of my cap. So I'm lining them up right sides together. And what I want to line up first is my fold. So remember, I cut on the fold, and it's nice because the whole way through this pattern, you just have a nice little guide. You can line those folded edges up. So I put a pin in here. Then I line up my pleats next, or my darts, sorry. My darts are next to make sure that those are offset, just to spread out all that bulkiness. I'm gonna throw the pin in the bottom of my ties, and you can pin as little or as much as you'd like. Let's see. Okay, reminder on that giveaway. We are getting close to being finished, so make sure that you've either liked or shared or commented to enter. And then I'm going to choose someone at the very end of this. We probably have about 10 or so minutes left. And then something important to remember, you need to leave a 3-inch opening to turn this right side out. I like to leave it along a straight edge. That's always the easiest place to sew after you've turned it right side out. So I'm going to put a pin in here, and I like to put it just horizontally, so the opposite way of how I normally pin, because it just serves as a visual reminder for me, hey, don't sew over this part. When I come to that pin, I can stop, backstitch, skip ahead a few inches, and then start again. And then we need to line up this bottom piece. So I like to turn these seams inward, make sure everything is just lined up nice and pretty. Throw a pin in there. Again, same on this side. And I think we're ready to sew. So I'm going to pull my sewing machine back over. Are there any questions I can answer while I'm sewing?
What is quilting cotton?
Quilting cotton is the fabric that is used by quilters. It looks just like this. It's 100% cotton fabric. It's a thinner fabric, but it has a tighter weave. It's great for this project. It also is what's recommended for face masks. You can find it at any craft store. Pretty much any craft store has it.
And it's labeled as quilting cotton.
And it's usually labeled as quilting cotton. And on the label it will say 100% cotton. Whenever you reach a corner, what I like to do is sew with my sewing machine needle in the down position. That means when you're sewing and you stop, the needle is going to stay down, and that allows me to just lift my presser foot, pivot, and I can keep sewing, and I get a nice sharp turn when I do that. So when you turn your fabric right side out, you have a nice sharp corner, and I'm going to keep sewing. And this curves a little bit, so just follow that curve. And then as you come up to this, this is the very back of the cap. This is probably a little bit tricky looking. What you want to do is just follow your previous stitches and go up about 3/8 of an inch, turn, and keep sewing. And you're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. Pull this this out a little bit.
Can you add buttons to hold the mask?
That's a great question. You can add buttons at the end, and I will show you where I would add them. Okay, pivot again. Gonna get nice sharp corners from that. Okay, any other questions that have come up? Pivot again. Remember to take those pins out as you're sewing. Okay, I want to know in the comments, are you guys planning on sewing up this scrub cap? And if so, who are you sewing it for?
What brand is your iron?
My brand of iron is an Aliso Pro. You can find it on Amazon. You can also find it at Joann. Okay, and we're almost to the finish line. So I'm coming up on this pin, remember that I placed earlier, and it just reminds me, hey, stop right here, back stitch, and leave an opening for turning. So remove that last pin. And now the next step that I like to do is I like to, oops, we gotta cut our threads first. What I like to do is just go over some of my corners. I like to clip my corners this way and just trim off a little bit of the seam allowance. And that makes it a little bit better when you turn it right side out. You'll get sharper corners that way. So I'm laying this out in front of me. Let's see where my scissors are.
Can you use regular 100% cotton for the masks if you can't get quilting cotton?
Yes.
So yes to 100% cotton.
Usually 100% cotton is going to be a quilter's cotton. But if you have something else, cotton is great because it's breathable. So I'm trimming off a little bit of my tie. I'm trimming close to but not through my seam allowance. And then I like to cut the corners off. Again, close to but not through my seam allowance. And this one as well. I have a lot of threads. Trim your threads as you go. I'm like the queen of threads tonight. Okay, and then I want to cut into close to but not into my seam allowance. So here is that back portion again that I said was a little tricky. You want to cut into that little right angle. Kind of see, I'm going to cut into that, and what that's going to do is just release the tension that's right in there. So when you turn it right side out, it can just be free. Just cut both of these sides just to loosen that fabric. Now it's time to turn this right side out. So find your opening. Mine is over here. I like to take my pen to help me turn my straps out. You can use a turning tool if you have one, but if you don't, a pen comes in handy. And I just slide this in here. Let's see if I can get it to go. And I'm gonna push this all the way through until I get to the other side where the hole is at. And then I pull my pen out and I just start pulling my fabric through. I feel like 3 inches is like the perfect opening size for this amount of fabric. And I'm going to use my pen again just to turn this one right side out. Are there any other questions?
No.
Okay. Reminder, our giveaway is almost ready. So if you want that $50 gift card to Joann, make sure that you have liked this video and then go ahead and share it with your friends or in a group, wherever you want to share it, and then comment here letting me know that you shared it. I'm going to choose someone in just a few minutes. We're almost done. Okay, so this is looking like an actual hat now. Pretty exciting. The last step, we need to top stitch and then press everything. So I am going to quickly top stitch that opening. There's a few different ways you could close this. You could top stitch, you could glue it if you wanted to use fabric glue, you could also slip stitch it. It's really up to you how you choose to close that. I think it's nice to top stitch around the entire cap because when it goes in the wash, it makes everything stay in place a little bit better.
Can you put elastic in the back for it to be tighter?
You could definitely put elastic in the back. So this pattern was designed without elastic just because of the current elastic shortage that we seem to be going through. But you could definitely add a little casing in the back. That would be super easy. But it does tie pretty tight as well, if you're worried about that. I'm just gonna top stitch along this opening. And restitch.
And this is reversible.
This is reversible. That's the nice thing about this. You have two different sides. It's fully enclosed. It's nice and clean. Now I'm going to press.
You wanna know where you got your ironing board from?
My ironing board is from Walmart. It goes like a whopping $10 and it's great. It's the perfect size. I used to use my clothing one and it felt like it was just a little bit too big. So this one's nice because it sits on top of the table. A little tip for when you are turning out your ties, I like to take a pin and stick it into the corners and just gently pull those out. You don't want to rip your fabric, but you're just helping that fabric to be turned out so you can get a nice sharp point. Roll it back and forth a little bit. I'm gonna do that on this one as well. And the reason that I do that is it makes it look a little bit nicer. I always like for the things that I sew to look like they were professionally made. And there's a few tips and tricks to help you do that. Now I'm going to press this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to roll my seams back and forth between my fingers. And this helps me to get to the very edge of that seam allowance. And
When you top stitch it, do you do a pattern stitch?
when I top stitch, I usually just do a straight stitch. You could definitely do a decorative stitch. It could be fun, depending on the stitches that your machine has.
And where's your mat from?
My cutting mat is Fiskars. I think you can find it on Amazon. Now I'm going to press this back piece. This is the kind of funny right angle that you have back here. So I like to lay my ties at an angle so they can get into here. Okay, last call for that giveaway. I'm gonna choose that person in about 2, maybe 3 minutes. If you do win the giveaway, make sure that you contact me. You can just send me a message that way.
Don't forget to let them know where to add the buttons.
Oh yes, the buttons, thank you. I'm gonna show you just now, as soon as this is done. Okay, so something that a lot of people are wanting to do is adding buttons to this. The reason why people want to add buttons is if a healthcare provider has a mask with elastic and they're wearing that for hours and on hours, it can break down the skin behind your ear. It can just irritate it. So some people have had some great ideas, which I've been so excited about seeing so many fun ideas. What you do is you would place, so I'm gonna get this on here just so I have an idea of where it goes. I would take 2 large buttons. You wanna use about, the very smallest I would use a 1-inch button, but I would recommend something larger than that. And you're going to place it about here. That way, if they had a mask, let's see, I don't have one with elastic right now because I gave all of mine away. They could just hook their little strap right there and it would hold it instead of them having to wear it on their ears all day and worrying about their ears hurting, or even if they have an allergy to latex. That's been an issue as well with elastic. Okay, I'm ready to choose the giveaway winner. Okay, let's do
Facebook.
So Lindsay's here. She's going to choose randomly from the comments. We're going to do Facebook first.
Okay, Facebook we have Shannon Lopez.
On Facebook, our winner is Shannon Lopez. Make sure to message me so that I can send that over to you. On YouTube, we have
Casey Wynn.
Casey Wynn. Okay, Casey, make sure to message me. You can find me on Facebook if you can't get to me on YouTube. I'm going to show you really quickly how this goes on. So you just slide it on like this. The front is meant to come down a little bit. The back has some fullness, and the fullness is there in case you have a lot of hair like I do. I have a lot of requests from nurses saying make sure that I can hold all of our hair in a bun or a ponytail. So I wrap up all my hair, and then I cover it up. You can double knot it if you want, so you have a nice tight fit in the front and then a little bit of room in the back for all of your hair. And if you don't have a lot of hair, you can just tie it a little bit tighter and you'll have a tighter fit along the back. Okay, thank you so much for tuning in and sewing with me. If you're watching this after it's live, at any point you can pause it and come back to it and sew along with me. If you want the pattern, it is available for free on sweetredpoppy.com. And I will see you guys next week. Thanks so much for tuning in.